It's interesting to me that you have the one of duckies in the problem slot, as it typically represents a person that's only important in your life sometimes. My interpretation of this is that your mental health issues are probably due, at least in part, out of you treating yourself this way. Sometimes we forget, or are encouraged to forget, that we are the most important people in our own lives. The 18 of carrots in the short-term slot says that you can use this experience as insight. Because you may have left school, but you still got a very important education. Now the long-term slot is the guitar. Grover's rocking out because he's being true to himself. In fact, this entire read is saying that you are permitted to, and in fact encouraged to, focus on yourself, your wants, and your needs. So don't force yourself to work well for school. Make school work well for you. The Sesamerot has spoken. Now, when answering a question like this, the Sesamerot actually switches the roles of the problem and solution slots. Because what you are seeking when you ask this kind of question is insight into a problem. So the 12 of doodlebugs represents an ideal. Notice how there's sort of an order to the doodlebugs. Everyone's worked out, everything's idealized. But of course we aren't seeing the work the doodlebugs had to do to get into that form of order. And I believe your two problem slots are explaining why. The oval watermelon is a sign of growth obtained through hard work and patience. And the yellow rectangle represents pressure that you experience when you're trying to remain cautious. And when you become deeply aware that you need all of this to get back to this, well, it becomes easier to wallow in the past. So if you want to move forward, don't think of it as moving away from an ideal. Think of it as moving towards. The Sesamerot has spoken. In the problem slot, we see the jar card. The two-headed monster has the unique ability to evaluate the jar from all sides at the same time. This is a sign that the Sesamerot wishes to answer this question objectively. And it does so very definitively by choosing the 4 of beanies in the short-term slot. I mean, even before we consider the connection 4 turtles, 4 beanies, the 4 of beanies has always represented a sort of a unit or a group that's cohesive together. So I believe the Sesamerot is saying that the whole is so much greater than the sum of its parts, in every sense of the term. And of course the long-term slot is the pizza triangle, probably represents pizza. You know, not everything is esoteric moon symbolism. You know, sometimes it is what it is. Then again, Oscar is facing the 4 beanies. Possibly to say, you 4 fight over this slice of pizza, whoever wins it is my favorite. Sesamerot has spoken. In your problem slot is the 20 of stars. Now 20 is actually the highest number in the Sesamerot, probably representing the high numbers of cheese wheels that you've got. Now lots of cheeses are orange, and you mentioned cheese wheels, so these are round cheeses. So perhaps the orange card in the short-term slot is a suggestion to start giving some of them away. Now the thing is, there's 2 cards where Oscar's offering food. The orange card where he looks to the right or the future, and the sandwich card where he looks to the past. So I believe in this case we are offering the cheese wheel to the 3 of fish, a symbol of, among other things, the family you choose for yourself. So I believe the Sesamerot is suggesting that you use this abundance of cheese wheels to make new friends, either by hosting a very large cheese party, or by walking up the Sheogorath and just unloading your entire inventory. Wabbajack, wabbajack, the Sesamerot has spoken. I believe the far card in the problem slot is speaking of your anxieties, as in it speaks of you having an experience that is far from the experiences you are used to having. That is relatable. Now in the short-term slot we have the amazing Mumford holding up an alligator. This is often a sign that things will not go as you expect. You know, I mean, because normally when you see the amazing Mumford you expect a rabbit to come out. Thing is, that may not be necessarily a bad thing, because think of it this way, this was your expectations. So in the short-term slot, the Sesamerot is advising you to get rid of any preconceived notions you may have about how things are going to go. Save some of that mental bandwidth for what the Sesamerot says is in your long-term slot, the 15 of trucks. You see, the number 15 is a sign of new beginnings, and the trucks are a sign of drive. In other words, you're being presented with a wonderful new opportunity. Don't waste it by slacking off. The Sesamerot has spoken. Well, I once read a comment that said the Sesamerot doesn't stutter, and this is a great example of that. You see, the problem card is being represented by the 4 of beanies. Imagine you're hanging out somewhere and you see four Muppets walk by. They're all wearing the exact same beanie. You can assume pretty safely they're together as one group. I believe this is a sign that AAA companies as a habit run everything by committee. And according to the Sesamerot, that's why they're just going to keep pushing the same stuff they always push. Think back to all the games that you had the most fun with. You had so much fun with them because they were doing something new. And doing something new requires risk. Risks are a thing that smaller organizations can take on a little more easily. But if you're on the committee of a multi-billion-dollar corporation beholden to investors, you're not taking a lot of risks. It's not in the business model. So the forecast is more of the same. Seek shelter in the indie markets. The Sesamerot has spoken. The 18 of carrots in the problem slot tells us very clearly vegetables are out, which I'm guessing is a reference to things like Vegemite or Branston pickle. Those would not go good with peanut butter. Although I am going to have to disagree on one count. The peanut butter and onion is really good. It's probably not the best topping, but it's a good topping. The short and long-term slots are the 10 of fruits and the 8 of bats, respectively. Probably a sign that the old standby of fruit jam will do just fine. However, the 8 of bats usually represents how something that seems spooky really isn't. And sometimes you just got to take a shot in the dark. All in all, I believe the Sesamerot is pointing towards a dark fruit jam that is not very common. And that gets me thinking, have you ever tried black cherry jam? Because I had a peanut butter and black cherry jam sandwich once, and it was probably the best peanut butter sandwich I've ever had. Then again, I did just confess to liking peanut butter and onion, so take it for what it's worth. But the Sesamerot has spoken. The problem is being defined by the 7 of cookies. Now, the number 7 is a prime number, and cookies are a treat, not something we're supposed to be eating for the entire meal. This may be a sign that you are concentrating on yourself and what tastes good to you and not what's necessarily good for you. In other words, you want this, it tastes good to you, but is it healthy? The 9 of butterflies symbolizes completion, transformation, and freedom. Perhaps a sign that if you love somebody, you let them go and see if they fly back to you. Your relationship may be in a place right now where you're going to learn more about the truth of the matter with a little bit of separation. You know, give the cookies a break. Maybe try some fruit or a nice salad. I really got to stop doing these readings right before lunch. Anyway, the book in the long-term slot is assigned to read the signs and do your research. Because it's one thing to know what you want, it's a whole other thing to know about what you want. The Sesamerot has spoken. Well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but this reading does not look good for you. The problem is being defined by the 1 of teddy bears, which is a sign that every child has one personal thing, one personal choice, that they're really just going to want to stick to. Meanwhile, there are numerous varieties of mac and cheese, all with their own particular qualities, as represented by the 8 of triangles. Now, to properly explore this concept further, you would need to try out more varieties of mac and cheese, which is represented by the 14 of bottle caps, implying, of course, the opening of 14 bottles. So, in essence, you would be trying out even more varieties of mac and cheese and basically, in the abstract, come to the same results. This may be time to literally and figuratively think outside the box. Instead, consider finding a good homemade mac and cheese recipe and customizing it to the family. The Sesamerot has spoken. In the problem slot is the low Super Grover. Super Grover is only supposed to land when there's a problem to solve. So I believe the Sesamerot is saying your problem is you always feel like there's a problem to solve. To further focus on this, we have in the short-term solution slot the cookie circles. Now, circles can represent, among other things, a cycle, and there's nothing more Cookie Monster wants to do than break those particular chocolate chip cycles. Now, certainly Cookie Monster did not tell himself he could not bite into a cookie. Somebody else must have put that idea in his head. Similarly, if you're feeling guilt for something you have not done, perhaps someone in your past put that idea into you. Now, the 3 of fish represents, among other things, the freedom that we explore with others. Perhaps what you need is just a little positive reinforcement from others. That could take the form of therapy or just quality time with people who care about you. The Sesamerot has spoken. The different card in the problem slot speaks to the core of the problem. Either that the two of you have different ideas about this relationship, or that you have a different perception of the answer given. That second theory is given credence by the rhombus in the short-term slot. And in fact, the fact that the Sesamerot has chosen the multicolored rhombus instead of one of the solidly colored ones could be a sign that our own perception, i.e., the way we want to look at things, is what's complicating the problem. First off, because the word maybe itself opens up a lot of possibilities, but the reason the answer maybe was given in the first place may also be complex, which is why I believe the tie in the long-term slot is inviting you to go with the grown-up option. Instead of celebrating that you did not get a no, consider instead that you did not get an enthusiastic yes. The Sesamerot has spoken. The white octagon in the problem slot definitely speaks of how deeply uninteresting you find this job. And of course, the complexity of the octagon does point out that this is a job that needs to be done. But let's look at the logical situation here. Does it, strictly speaking, need to be done by you? I mean, if all you need is money, there's an entire world of jobs that will pay you. Of course, the blue triangle can also be an arrow pointing you towards what it is you're actually wanting to do with your life, while the 11 of Wands suggests that you should do this as soon as possible. There will always be other jobs, but what you won't have an infinite amount of is time. Also, let's revisit that white octagon just briefly. The complexity of this shape definitely speaks of this being a problem that goes beyond money. And whatever that problem is, make sure you're addressing it directly and honestly during your job search. The Sesamerot has spoken. The problem is being defined by the two-headed monster with a jaw. The empty jaw leads me to believe that there's something in your life that's going unfulfilled, and you are exploring the option of moving because it will help you fill that need. The green rhombus in the short-term slot is telling you to trust your instincts, trust your insight and intuition. Give yourself enough credit to realize that you've recognized that there is a problem in the first place, and it is good that you are looking for active solutions. However, the long-term slot, Rosita holding a tomato, also suggests a little bit of caution. The tomato is a wonderful, healthy gift, but not everybody likes tomatoes, and some people may even be allergic to them. So make sure that the location you have chosen works for everybody involved, not just yourself. Good luck to you and yours. The Sesamerot has spoken. The problem is being defined by the pink octagon. As the octagon is the most complicated shape in the Sesamerot, this often speaks of the complexities of life. And I believe this is a problem for you because, taken as a whole, the whole thing just feels very overwhelming. For solutions, we turn to the 9 of Waters in the short-term solution spot. Now, of course, water is essential to all life, and if we look to the long-term slot, we'll see that the two-headed monster is holding an empty jaw. I believe this is the Sesamerot saying you've got to figure out how to get the water into the jaw. However, the water also represents the number 9, which in the ancient math of Sesamatria, as well as some of those other numerology systems, 9 is the number of completion and accomplishment. Think of all the things in your past that made you feel full or fulfilled. That feeling of accomplishment is guidance towards your purpose in life. Acknowledge and follow that voice. The Sesamerot has spoken. The Sesamerot defines your problem with the push card, possibly an attempt to push these feelings out of your life. However, Zoe's resemblance to the ancient tale of Sisyphus cannot be ignored. For indeed, trying to stop yourself from longing for the past, well, there's a task that never ends. However, the Two of Boats might be a good hint. Many times, the things that we like about other people are things that we see within ourselves. That's why when we see this picture of two boats, it is comforting to think these two boats are the same boat and going in the same direction. That's what keeps us from acknowledging that these two boats are going to two very different places. And what we have here is only the moment in which it kind of looks like they're going to the same place. So step 1 is accepting that the two boats are not the same boat. Step 2 is acknowledging everybody's individual personage in that situation. They have gone off to pursue their individual needs, and you are now more free to fulfill your own. The Sesamerot has spoken. And if I only could, I'd shuffle up some cards and read you your Sesamerot. Well, as we all know, the Sesamerot takes every opportunity to just be right on the nose with stuff. Which is why we got Zoe in the push card, being that Zoe is the one pushing the narrative that Rocco is alive, and of course, Rocco is Zoe's friend. Notice that Rocco is pushing the ball right towards Oscar, who's holding his sandwich there. I interpret this as the pushback that some sorts of people like to give whenever a question of one's identity comes up. So instead of accepting the narrative that Zoe is pushing, this person right here is pushing back with their own garbage take. But now we look to the one of Duckies in the long-term slot, whose gaze is drifting over Oscar, as if to say, get over your preconceived notions, garbage person, because at one time I was just a rubber duck, but now I'm a fortune-telling device. Recognize my personage. Here endeth the lesson, the Sesamerot has spoken. The 8 of Bats and the 9 of Butterflies speak to a change in perspective. What you are focused upon right now is the sudden loss, which can be a very scary thing to deal with. However, the 9 of Butterflies speaks of metamorphosis, change. And in the constant cycle of life, there will always be change. Step 1 is coming to grips with that, doing little things in your own life to celebrate the moment. This means not only savoring the good times, but also recognizing that the bad times don't last forever. Step 2, which is related, is understanding the cyclical nature of life and love itself. One of the most common questions I get is, will I ever find love? Well, the truth is, love will find you. Typically, when you least expect it. Therefore, by making room for change in your life, you are also making room for love. The Sesamerot has spoken. The problem is being defined by the 12 of Doodlebugs. I believe this is pointing to what you should not do, which is to fly in the same direction everybody else is going. Keep doing the same things, going to get the same results. Now, the blue square and the orange hexagon speak to me on a pretty weird level. I'm going to need you to follow me on this one. One of my favorite video games is Portal, and in that game, the portals are blue and orange. Generally speaking, the best way to use the portal gun is to put one portal near where you are and put the other portal where you want to be. Now, squares in the Sesamerot represent our baseline understanding of stuff, while hexagons represent the grand mysteries of life. I believe this is a sign to start looking within your own life for things you don't quite understand, or maybe would like to understand a little better. Read a Wikipedia article or look at some YouTube videos about that topic, and once you fall deep enough down that rabbit hole, you will find something new that is relevant to your interests. The Sesamerot has spoken.